This is CBC Vancouver News.
Is something that needs to be addressed and needs to be addressed very quickly. We can't have a repeat of November 29.
Avoiding that nightmare commute, crews out in full force preparing for another South Coast snowstorm.
So this is really a godsend, you know, to pick up a few things that you need, like bread, eggs.
How volunteers in one Vancouver community are giving their neighbors a hand up.
Like, there aren't going to be questions about my identity or having to prove myself.
One Vancouver artist's mission to create a safe space for queer, trans, and racialized artists. Good evening, I'm Lien Yeung. Thanks for joining us. Much of the South Coast is expected to get hit with snow and frigid temperatures this upcoming week after heavy snowfall last month led to chaos and gridlock on the roads. Transportation crews say they are trying to get ahead of this storm. But as Yasmin Gandam reports, some say the efforts don't go far enough.
A blast of cold and snow is settling into the South Coast, and that's prompted a snowfall warning for Metro Vancouver, Howe Sound, and the Fraser Valley. Environment Canada predicting 2 to 5 centimeters of snow in the former and up to 20 centimeters in the latter throughout the weekend. Groups charged with moving people around and making the streets safe are already getting ready.
We're also preparing special trucks to de-ice the trolley wires. That's very important because we need to make sure that the trolley wires are staying clear of ice so that our trolley buses can continue moving throughout the snow. We are swapping out 60-foot buses for 40-foot buses as they are more agile in the snow.
The early action is a welcome sign for Surrey City Councillor Linda Annis, but doesn't go far enough for her. After commutes were paralyzed during last month's storm, Annis began a push for a snow summit to improve the region's response to major snowfalls.
We need to be working more closely together in an integrated approach to snow removal. On November the 29th, clearly we had a problem. We were not prepared for it. And this is not the first snowfall that we've ever had in the greater Vancouver area. And people were stranded for 8, 10, 12 hours, myself included.
The summit is still in the works, but Annis hopes this will be prioritized to avoid more delays on the roads.
We've not heard back from the Metro Board Chair or from the Minister Fleming. We're hoping that we will hear soon.
For now, drivers are reminded to be prepared by packing a winter survival kit, including a windshield scraper, flashlights, first aid supplies, and blankets. The City of Vancouver says it will be prioritizing snow and ice treatment on major roads and bus routes, as well as main streets close to major hospitals. The city also recommends people to take only essential trips on snow days and check TransLink for updates if you plan to use transit. Always give yourself extra time and plan ahead. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Vancouver.
And the cold snap has the city of Prince Rupert declaring a local state of emergency. The mayor is worried the weather will increase the risk of more water main breaks. In the past week, there have already been 6.
Our crews are being overwhelmed. It seems to be worse when the temperature drops. Those old pipes suffer a little bit from that. And so with the anticipated really cold weather coming, as a precautionary measure, we declared a state of emergency so that if we need help, it's already lined up.
The mayor says the ongoing water issues are due to aging infrastructure. By declaring a state of emergency, it will allow for financial help from the province. The city is asking residents to have backup water and to leave one tap at home running on a drip to avoid frozen pipes. To Prince George, where RCMP say an unborn child is dead after a truck hit a pregnant woman and fled. The crash happened around 7 p.m. Friday in the area of Highway 97 on Noranda Road. Police are now searching for a Ford F-350 truck with damage to the passenger side. On Friday, there were 4 collisions involving pedestrians in 4 cities, including Burnaby, Surrey, and Abbotsford. ICBC is asking drivers and pedestrians to remain vigilant. After days of sit-in strikes in protest against political executions in Iran around the world, there was another massive demonstration at the Vancouver Art Gallery. Similar protests were held nationwide in Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, and Saskatoon. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh spoke in solidarity with ongoing anti-government protests in Iran.
I want you to know, as the leader of the New Democratic Party in Canada, I stand with you.
Last week, Iran executed 2 protesters for what it calls crimes against the Iranian regime. The local Iranian community is asking Canadian MPs to sponsor political prisoners in Iran and raise awareness about their cases in the public sphere. Time is running out in the search for a Victoria woman who has been missing for a week. Crews mounted the largest search to date for 39-year-old Melissa McDevitt, who is neurodiverse and shows signs of cognitive delays.
And this has always been our belief that she knew that she had to turn around, so not to be caught by darkness, and that she's probably not far from where her car was parked, but she has sought refuge. She's secreted herself away, and it's going to be virtually stepping on her to find her at this point.
McDevitt was last seen in the parking lot near a trail in the Souk Potholes area. It was just Friday afternoon before a storm set in. Today, more than 170 volunteers from 15 different groups, including North Shore Rescue, combed a 6-kilometer area from where her car was found. Crews say the search may have to be scaled back soon as it turns into a possible recovery mission. A massive fire in Vancouver last night engulfed a house under construction and forced 2 families out of their homes. The fire started around 9 p.m. at a duplex site near Argyle Street and East 31st Avenue. It quickly destroyed the home that was under construction and spread to 2 neighboring homes, causing significant damage. No one was hurt in the fire, fortunately, but both families are displaced. The fire is considered suspicious, and fire officials are investigating. Well, you could be hearing much less airplane noise around YVR in the years to come. Authorities are turning to satellites to update its flight patterns.
Similar to cars, we have invisible highways in the sky that are used by planes to ensure that they can fly in the airspace safely and efficiently. And as time goes by, we need to update that infrastructure.
By using satellites, Bagg says flight paths will be more precise. Planes can descend smoother with using less thrust, helping to reduce noise. He estimates around 1 to 5 decibels lower than usual. NAV Canada says 61,000 homes could benefit if flight paths are streamlined. Consultations on the initiative begin Monday and will run into the new year. And an update to a story we brought you earlier this fall. The owner of a houseboat who was facing eviction in Langley has finally found a marina to call home. Ross McLeod, a 74-year-old retired teacher, was served an eviction notice back in May, but he struggled to find a place as none of the marinas had any vacancies. After months of searching, the distraught homeowner has finally found a spot at the Queensboro Marina. The float home was towed to its new location earlier this week. A new community pantry has popped up outside the Kitsilano neighborhood house. It's one of several across Metro Vancouver, aimed at combating food insecurity at a grassroots level. As Janella Hamilton reports, the Low Barrier Initiative hopes to fill a growing need.
That's from my brother. He likes Ritz crackers.
Give what you can, take what you need. That's the idea behind a new outdoor fridge and pantry stocked full of free food for those who live in this Kitsilano neighborhood.
Yeah, help yourself.
Mona Grenier says people of all ages are experiencing hidden hunger, including students and those with fixed incomes.
With the rising cost of food, more and more people are struggling these days, but initiatives like community pantries and fridges shows that we can help each other.
81-year-old Roberta Howie lives nearby. She says after paying rent and utilities, there isn't a lot of money left over for groceries.
This is really a godsend, to pick up a few things that you need, like bread, eggs.
Inside the fridge are pantry basics like dairy, meat, and produce, as well as prepared meals and dried goods. Organizers say donations come in, and within a few hours, they're gone.
We just saw here today, it opened, and right away people were coming to the pantry and taking some food for themselves and for their families.
With food insecurity higher than ever, the demand for support in BC is increasing. The Greater Vancouver Food Bank has seen its clients double in the last 2 years. Grenier says while food banks are invaluable, building a low-barrier community pantry in a central location improves accessibility for people with mobility and transportation issues or those who fear being turned away from food banks. The new community pantry is open 24 hours a day and is available to anyone, no questions asked.
I can't walk into a store and afford to buy a meal, you know? It's sad.
Tony Swain has lived in the neighborhood for more than 50 years. He says for people like him who are experiencing social isolation during the pandemic, the pantry serves a much greater purpose. It's a place to meet new friends and try new foods.
There are things in the pantry that you would not seek out in the store.
Until everyone can afford the food they need, Grenier hopes to see community pantries in every Vancouver neighborhood. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Hundreds of volunteers gathered today to package up some very special deliveries.
Today is Boxes of Love, where we are wrapping over 2,000 gifts and handing out over 700 boxes of love to vulnerable families in our community.
Families young and old wrapped toys, gift cards, and treats for stockings that may have gone empty. Thanks to some generous donations and dedicated volunteers from across Metro Vancouver, around 700 hampers will arrive just in time for the holidays.
We have over 200 volunteers here today that are not only wrapping gifts, packing the hampers, but actually delivering the hampers to the families. And so the real cool moment is when we have some of our volunteers go knock on a door, open the door, and then there's a family and kids receiving a Christmas, receiving gifts. And for a lot of these families, it's the only gifts they're going to be receiving all Christmas season. So it's such a special moment.
City Reach Care Society has been organizing the hampers for more than 20 years. Donations will be accepted until December 31st. Well, 'tis the season for craft fairs, but there was one market today in East Vancouver that was dedicated to highlighting queer and trans BIPOC creatives.
So vending in like a queer-friendly space is really important to me because I feel like I don't have to like explain or like justify my existence as a person, and I know that I'm going to be safe and treated respectfully, and like there aren't going to be questions about like my identity or having to like prove myself or just like feel the need to kind of fit in.
More than 20 artisans were featured at the Flourish Market, showing off handmade pieces from beaded earrings to cards and buttons to printed clothing. The organizer says she started the event because typical craft markets are expensive and inaccessible. Here, vendors pay on a sliding scale.
I was just really noticing a few years ago that markets are very financially inaccessible for a lot of folks. The vending fees often are $100, $200. So I couldn't afford to participate in other markets. And I also was just noticing there wasn't a lot of spaces for queer, trans folks of color to sell their creations. So I made a space.
Samant started the market in 2015 with 5 vendors at her house. This weekend, hundreds of people attended at the Massey Arts Society. A changing of the guard at Hockey Canada. A new board of directors takes over as Hockey Canada looks to rebuild its reputation. We'll have full details on that story coming up next. Hockey Canada elected a new board of directors today. They replaced the previous board, which stepped down in October. Their resignations followed intense criticism of the organization's handling of sexual assault cases and payments to victims, and a high-profile grilling before a parliamentary committee. CBC's Ithel Musa has more.
5 women and 4 men have been elected to Hockey Canada's board of directors, a diverse group of individuals with a wide range of expertise, tasked with helping to turn things around at the organization after its handling of sexual assault allegations.
Well, there are a number of challenges. We have to work on restoring trust.
Hugh Fraser is the organization's new board chair. He's a former Olympic sprinter and a retired Ontario judge.
One of the other priorities that I have is to ensure that everyone understands that they will be treated fairly, that they will be accountable. We're going to have due process.
Joining Fraser on Hockey Canada's new board is Marian Jacko. Jacko has devoted her legal career to working on behalf of children and Indigenous peoples. She is also the president of the Little Native Hockey League. Cassie Campbell-Pascal is also a new board member at Hockey Canada. The 3-time Olympic medalist helped Canada's women's hockey team secure 2 consecutive gold wins at the Olympic Games in 2002 and 2006. There is growing hope that she and the rest of the new board will usher in an improved culture at Hockey Canada and much-needed transparency. In a statement to CBC, Sport Minister Pascal Saint-Onge wrote in part, "The health of our national sports organizations starts with good governance, and I think this is a good way to start over for Hockey Canada. We will continue monitoring for concrete actions that the new board will take." But experts say while changing the organization's culture is necessary, it will not be easy.
That kind of rink level culture is very alive and well in Canada, whether it's about misogyny, violence against women, racism.
Hockey Canada says all players, coaches, and staff on Team Canada have completed mandatory training on sexual violence and consent. The organization also says there will be increased supervision of players, coaches, and staff at the 2023 World Junior Championship in Halifax and Moncton later this month. And there will be a zero-tolerance policy for all acts of harassment, discrimination, racism, and sexual violence. Ithel Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
A final farewell was made today for former Liberal cabinet minister Jim Carr. He died earlier this week. Hundreds attended a memorial service in Winnipeg. As the CBC's Austin Grabish reports, he was a staunch Liberal but was respected across party lines.
This performance, a fitting tribute to the late Jim Carr. A gifted musician himself, he played the oboe on this very stage as a teen with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra.
I suspect there was more than one Alberta oil and gas lobbyist shaking in their boots when the headline on the morning of November 4th, 2015 read, "Oboist becomes Minister of Natural Resources."
Carr served as a Winnipeg MP and as the Minister of Natural Resources, and later as Minister of International Trade Diversification until 2019 when he left cabinet after being diagnosed with cancer. His son, Ben Carr, told the room full of politicians from all parties how resilient his dad was.
He campaigned with kidney failure and cancer running through him for over 30 days in 2019. He ended election night by giving an upbeat victory speech in front of a large crowd before going to the hospital for the night.
He later returned to cabinet as a special representative for the Prairies. Carr was a close ally to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He says Canadians are better off because of his dedication to the country.
He was incredibly thoughtful, and I kind of felt special because he gave me so much attention. And what we've seen over the past week is he did that for everyone.
Carr had deep ties to Winnipeg's Jewish community and was well respected by his political peers.
He was, like for so many of us here today to pay respects, my parliamentary dad.
He was an unbelievable friend and an unbelievable mentor to me.
He's going to be missed. He was such a progressive thinker and a dear friend.
So Carr chose the music for his service, including this. It was his and his wife Colleen's wedding song. The Prime Minister ending the service by gifting her the Canadian flag that flew in Ottawa on Monday, the day he passed away, in honor of her husband. As well, gifting a copy of his Green Prairie Economy Private Members Bill that became law a few days after his passing. Jim Carr was 71. Austin Grabish, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And there's a time lapse from the Eagle Chair on Mount Cypress. Lots of snow up there and snow for us here at sea level. I'll have your forecast next. Lots going on in the weather. Let's take a look at your current watches and warnings. You can see everything in red there. Those are snowfall warnings, even for Metro Vancouver. And there's an Arctic outflow warning. Some very, very cold air expected in the areas in purple there and the areas of white across the province. Here's where temperatures are right now. Already really feeling that chill in the air. Arctic air is sweeping across from the east towards the west this time. So Abbotsford looking at the freezing mark. YVR sitting at 2 in Entrance Island, looking at a 4, and it's already below freezing in Victoria and Nanaimo. There's the forecast across the province. province. -20 if you're in Dees Lake, it'll be sunny. Prince Rupert looking at -8. Prince George looking at a -21. If you're in Victoria, you're going to see some of that snowfall. Also, same goes for Port Hardy. And there's your 5-day forecast. Tomorrow, expecting heavy snowfall at times. That wind chill, watch for it potentially feeling like a -10 in the afternoon. Well, the next time you're on the SkyTrain, you might imagine your image immortalized as art. Nishant Jain, known as the Sneaky Artist, is quietly sketching people aboard trains all month. He is TransLink's artist in residence.
Sneaky art is just me walking around cities, looking at the different things that people do and trying to find some moments of beauty in all the madness of urban life. It's art that I believe is around us all the time in our cities, and my job as an artist is to sit down, give it a moment and appreciate it, to look at it and to bring it out of all the other things that are happening around us all the time when we travel through cities. A few years ago, I quit my PhD, and because I was so self-conscious and nervous about what I do and this idea of trying to learn to draw, I started to be sneaky about it. So I moved to Vancouver almost 2 years ago, and I love public transport. I love drawing on the trains, on the buses, and someone on TransLink noticed my drawings because I think I tagged them on social media, and then they reached out with this idea for a residency that they're doing with musicians and other visual artists. And together we came up with this plan that I could sit on the trains and draw all the people and get them interested in just this idea of engaging with each other when we're on the train. The more you travel by public transport, the more it seeps into you the idea that we live in a community, and there is a lot of cooperation to get all the different things that we all individually want in our lives.
What an interesting guy. Hope to see him on transit sometime soon. It's very cool. That's your late news for this Saturday. Thank you for joining us. For news at any hour, go to our website, cbc.ca/BC. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a good night.